So, Jayden, the former JCube, is set for preview from the 28th of October 2023 with booking day set for the 11th of November 2023. Ahead of its launch, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at the price performance of the most recently launched project within that area, and that's J Gateway, which launched in 2013, widely regarded as the peak of the local housing market. What are some lessons that we can learn from J Gateway's price performance, and what does this mean for Jayden? The results may surprise you or not. Let's take a look. Let's first get one thing out of the way. Around Jayden, there are only 3 private residential projects: Ivory Heights, Westmere, and J Gateway. Ivory Heights and Westmere are 37 and 24 years old this year, with prices stabilizing at just above 1,000 per square foot. So it's not ideal to use them as case studies for this analysis because they are not quite in line with today's market prices. This is especially since in 2022 we already saw the rise of $2,000 per square foot in the OCR region. This leaves us with J Gateway. Now, J Gateway had 3 things working against it, some that we knew at its time of launch and some that we know only in hindsight. First, it launched in 2013, the year that later became known as the peak of the local housing market. And it was the peak due to the slew of cooling measures that were introduced, primarily TDSR. And if you look at the private property price index, on a macro level, prices dipped after 2013, and it took quite a few years to recover from there. Second, launch prices for J Gateway were high, or rather were thought to be high ahead of its launch. It was tipped to see prices at 1,600 per square foot. Now keep in mind, this was in 2013. At 1,600 per square foot, you could have bought yourself a resale freehold condo at City Square Residences. And it didn't help that the general sentiment amongst buyers during that time was that yes, these prices were high. Third, there was a bit of an excitement, and in hindsight, we now know that it was a bit of a hype driven by the high-speed rail project. The high-speed rail was an express rail link conceptualized to connect Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. The Singapore end of the terminus was supposed to be located at the Jurong Country Club site. It was supposed to occupy only 18% of that land area, with the rest of the land space being developed into a mixed development comprising offices, hotels, retail, and residences. And understandably, this development would have further strengthened Jurong as a massive commercial hub. This project was announced in 2013 but was cancelled in 2021. So looking at these 3 factors, it is very natural to assume that J Gateway most definitely didn't do well. But here's how J Gateway actually performed. Out of 167 resale transactions, only 2 were unprofitable, and even those were at negative 0.2 and 0.1% annualized losses. The average profit, $182,000. And basing on a research article from Stack Homes, J Gateway was the best performer amongst 56 new launch projects in 2013. And next, for rental rates, the most recent rental transactions are at about $7, $8, $9 per square foot per month. And to give you a bit of context, these kind of rental rates can also be seen at a development in the city area, Marina 1 Residences. And the sale prices at J Gateway has increased since its launch, and despite the HSR being cancelled, despite the general sentiment that prices were high, prices have actually risen by 24%. So price sometimes really is about perception. So what do all these mean, and what are some lessons that we can learn from J Gateway's price performance, and what are some implications for Jayden? The first is that it can be quite tough to predict when is the peak of the local housing market. But what we can do is to assess each project by virtue of its location and unique attributes. Jayden is located just about 150 meters away from Jurong East MRT station, and we know now for certain that there will be a JWalk overhead pedestrian bridge that will link Jayden directly to Jurong East MRT station. This is a level of convenience that is for now unbeaten within that region. And so the question here is, will such attributes be in demand, and will future buyers be willing to pay for this? I do think so. Jurong's significance as the second CBD means that rental demand will continue to be strong, and renters will be willing to pay good rates to stay within the heart of this region which is good news for would-be investors. And lastly, despite HSR's cancellation, although it seems it might be coming back, but let's not get our hopes up too high for that. At this juncture, we already know the existence of 2 other land sites that are set to be developed. The first site is the land area on which the Jurong Regional Library currently sits. And this is because the library is set to be moved over to the Jurong East MRT area, where there's going to be the creation of an integrated transport hub with a 27-story tower that will house offices, retail, and public spaces. This integrated transport hub is set to be ready by 2027. The second is a master developer white site called the Jurong Lake District GLS. This is a massive site distributed across 3 separate land parcels that can see anything from 600 to 1,700 residential units. It is currently open for developer tender, and the tender will close in March 2024. And what is unique about this land site is that all 3 land parcels will be linked to each other. In particular, Plot 1 will be linked directly to the Jurong Lake District Cross Island Line station via an underground passageway. And plots 1, 2 and 3 will be linked to each other via an elevated pedestrian link bridge. So as you can see, the emergence of this white site will massively increase the level of connectedness of all of the spaces around Jurong East MRT station, be it the residential spaces or the commercial spaces, and will offer pedestrians this level of convenience to access the MRT stations rain or shine. And you know what the best thing is? We are still in the very early stages of this transformation. If you'd like to attend the preview, drop me a note and I'll be glad to show you around. I hope this was useful. I'll catch you in the next one.